Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep on the work of Robert Anton Wilson.
Oh, really fascinating
Yeah,
stuff.
it's going to be a wild ride.
Okay.
So we're using his book Cosmic Trigger. Have you heard this one?
I have, yeah. It's a classic.
Yeah, and it's basically like his own personal journey of uh, all sorts of like brain change experiments and experiences, and he ties in like philosophy and mysticism.
And psychedelics? Don't forget the psychedelics.
Oh yeah, lots of psychedelics. But it's not just like a trip report or anything. He goes deep into quantum physics even.
Well, that's what's so great about Wilson, right? He's not afraid to explore anything. And he doesn't just accept things at face value.
Right. He's all about questioning everything.
Exactly, instead of like clinging to these fixed beliefs.
He's like, nope, we got to keep testing our models.
Yeah. Our models of the universe, he called them.
Yeah. Or even better, reality tunnels.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. The idea that we're all kind of trapped in these like self-constructed bubbles of perception.
It's like, whoa, what if the way I see the world isn't the only way?
And he argued that, like, getting stuck in one of those tunnels, one rigid tunnel, is like having a medieval attitude.
Medieval attitude, okay?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And he said it holds us back from, real scientific progress.
And from understanding ourselves, too.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. This idea of reality tunnels, it should matter to you.
Yeah, why should we care about this?
Well, because it suggests that maybe, just maybe, the way we see things isn't the only way or even the most accurate way.
So, like, how do we even begin to break out of our tunnels?
Well, Wilson actually put his money where his mouth is, so to speak. He went on this whole journey of self-induced brain change.
Oh, this is where it gets wild.
Yeah, we're talking psychotherapy, we're talking psychedelics.
Like, really pushing the boundary?
Pushing the boundaries of consciousness, exactly.
But he was super rigorous about it.
Oh, absolutely. Even when he was dealing with stuff that most people would consider, like, totally out there.
Right. Like, do you actually think he was talking to aliens?
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But the point is he was meticulous. He documented everything, analyzed his experiences, trying to draw, like, actual conclusions.
He wasn't just like, oh, I took some LSD and now I know everything.
No, no, no. This was serious self-exploration. But, and this is important, he also cautioned readers, to not just casually dive into this stuff.
Oh, yeah, he's not advocating for everyone to just start dropping acid.
No, he actually stressed that having a solid grounding in psychotherapy is crucial.
Okay, so like therapy before you try to rewire your brain with psychedelics.
Exactly. He viewed this whole process of like initiation, like a powerful form of self-psychotherapy, but one with potential dangers.
There's got to be risks involved, right?
For sure, but also amazing rewards, potentially. So you got to be careful.
One of the things that jumped out at me in Cosmic Trigger was Wilson's fascination with Lao Tse, the ancient Chinese philosopher.
Yep. Wilson was like obsessed with Lao Tse. He saw him as this like visionary who grasped the universe.
You mean like centuries ahead of his time?
Centuries.
Wait, so you're saying Lao Tse like predicted modern science?
Well, Wilson pointed out that way back in the 6th century BC, Lao Tse seems to have like grasped these concepts that we now associate with, cutting edge science.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, well, for starters, relativity, like Einstein's theory of relativity, and binary code.
Whoa. Binary code. That's like the basis of computers.
Exactly. And even, and this is wild, the triplicate function of amino acid binding.
I'm not a scientist, so like break that down for me.
It's a fundamental concept in genetics.
No way. So like Lao Tse was talking about DNA thousands of years ago.
Well, not explicitly, but Wilson argued that these ideas were like hidden in his writing.
That's mind-blowing.
It really makes you wonder if there's this like secret knowledge woven into these ancient traditions.
It's waiting to be rediscovered.
Totally. And speaking of hidden knowledge, we can't talk about Wilson without talking about the Illuminati.
Oh, here we go. Down the rabbit hole.
Right. Everyone loves a good conspiracy theory.
Okay, but seriously, who are the Illuminati?
Well, that's a thing. No one really knows for sure. They're shrouded in mystery.
There's so many different stories about them.
Oh, yeah. Some people say they orchestrated revolutions. Others claim they worshiped the devil. There are even theories connecting them to Atlantis.
It's like, where do you even begin to separate fact from fiction?
Exactly. And that's where Wilson's emphasis on skepticism comes in.
So he didn't just buy into all the hype.
He didn't shy away from exploring these possibilities, but he always stressed the importance of, carefully evaluating the information we encounter.
So, like, don't just believe everything you read on the internet.
Especially when it comes to something as loaded as the Illuminati. He had this great metaphor for it, too.
Oh, what's that?
the Chapel Perilous.
Chapel Perilous. Sounds ominous.
It is. It's from Arthurian legends. It's this place of like intense psychological challenge and transformation.
Okay, like knights go there to face their fears.
Right. And they either emerge broken or enlightened.
So how does that relate to the Illuminati?
Well, Wilson saw it as a metaphor for like exploring altered states of consciousness.
Oh, I see. Like going down those rabbit holes can be dangerous if you're not prepared.
Exactly. He believed that venturing into these spaces, whether through psychedelics or other means, could be both incredibly dangerous and incredibly rewarding.
So it's like a tightrope walk.
Yeah. You need a balance of reason, sympathy, and intuition to navigate it.
Otherwise, you might end up lost in the Chapel Perilous.
Lost or transformed, you never know. But this whole idea of like venturing into the unknown, it connects to something even bigger.
What's that?
The question of whether we're alone in the universe, and if we're not alone, are we even capable of recognizing other intelligences?
Okay, that's a big one. So how did Wilson approach this?
Well, he was really interested in the work of Robert Temple, who argued that beings from the Sirius star system,
Wait, Sirius? Like the dog star?
the very same, Temple argued that beings from Sirius may have actually visited Earth in ancient times.
That's a pretty bold claim. Did he have any evidence?
He presented a lot of evidence in his book, The Sirius Mystery, but it's open to interpretation.
Like, did these beings actually come here in spaceships?
Maybe. Or maybe it was some kind of like interstellar communication.
Telepathy?
Could be.
It's amazing that Wilson was even open to these possibilities.
Right, while still being like scientifically minded.
So he didn't just accept anything blindly. He wanted evidence.
He wanted to look at the data, but he was also willing to entertain ideas that challenged conventional thinking. And this openness, it extended to his exploration of the nervous system too.
The nervous system. What does that have to do with aliens?
Well, he had this theory that our nervous systems might actually have a much greater impact on reality than we realize.
Whoa. So you're saying, like, our minds are shaping the world around us.
That's a trippy thought, right? And he even brought in quantum physics to back it up, specifically the concept of quantum inseparability.
I'm not even going to pretend to understand quantum physics.
Yeah.
But, like, what's the basic idea?
Basically that particles can be connected on a subatomic level, even when they're physically separated by vast distances.
Okay, so everything is interconnected.
Exactly. And Wilson proposed two, like, meta models for understanding reality.
P-models.
Yeah. One where our brains are actually creating the phenomena we experience, and another where our brains are somehow, like, contacting other intelligences.
So, like, our minds are either creating reality or tuning into some other reality.
Right. Now, he didn't claim to have all the answers, but he presented these models as frameworks for like exploring these really deep questions.
So we've got reality tunnels, ancient wisdom, secret societies, and the possibility of alien contact. I'm sensing a theme here.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Wilson was all about pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible
Yeah.
and questioning everything we think we know about reality.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another big piece of the puzzle, psychedelics.
Okay, now we're really getting to Wilson territory,
Right. I mean, you can't talk about Robert Anton Wilson without talking about psychedelics.
especially LSD.
Right. But it's important to remember that Wilson's exploration of psychedelics wasn't just about, like, getting high.
Oh, I know. He was very intentional about it.
He approached it from a scientific perspective. He was meticulous, documenting his experiences, analyzing the results. He really wanted to understand how these substances affect the brain and consciousness.
And this was back in the 60s and 70s, right? Like the
yeah.
peak of the psychedelic era.
Yeah. And there were, like, three main schools of thought on psychedelics back then.
Okay, break it down for me.
All right, so you had the psychotomimetic view. Psychotomimetic. Basically, they argued that psychedelics mimic psychosis.
So, like, they make you crazy.
Well, that was the idea. Then there was the psycholytic view, which saw them as tools for, like, breaking down psychological defenses.
So, like, therapy in a pill.
Kind of. And then finally, you had the psychedelic view, which believed that these substances could actually expand consciousness.
So, like, open your mind to new possibilities.
Exactly. And so you had these three different camps. Those who saw psychedelics as dangerous, those who saw them as therapeutic, and those who saw them as, like, consciousness expanding.
So where did Wilson land?
He was definitely intrigued by the potential of psychedelics to, like, alter perception and reveal these hidden aspects of reality.
But he wasn't like, everyone should take LSD.
No. He
Yeah.
also acknowledged the risks and stress responsible use and integration.
Okay, so set and setting, all that stuff.
Exactly. But his psychedelic experiences, they led him to some pretty wild encounters.
Oh, I bet. Tell me about one.
Okay. How about his meeting with Mescalito?
Mescalita. Who's that?
He's this entity that people often report encountering during mescaline experiences.
Mescaline, like from peyote.
Yep. And he's typically described as this, like, green, warty being.
Trying to picture that. A green, warty,
It's fully.
a being. Sometimes people see him dancing.
Sounds like something out of a cartoon.
I know, right? But seriously, what do we make of this? Hallucinations, spirit, something else entirely? Right, like, is this real or is it just in your head?
It's a tough one. There are a few different ways to interpret Mescalito. He could be a Jungian archetype, a figure from the collective unconscious.
Like a symbol of some deep-seated fear or desire.
Maybe. Or he could be a manifestation of the subconscious.
Like a symbolic representation of something going on within the person's psyche.
Exact. Or, and some shamans believe this, he could actually be a spirit of the vegetation.
A spirit.
Yeah. A consciousness that's like inherent in the mescaline-containing cactus itself.
So like the plant is talking to you.
In a way. And this brings us back to that fundamental question. Are we creating these entities with our minds? Or are we contacting something independent of ourselves?
That's a question that's been haunting humanity for centuries.
Sure. And it seems like Wilson didn't have a definitive answer either.
He was open to all the possibilities.
And he pointed out that Paracelsus, the founder of modern medicine, and Rudolf Steiner, a pioneer in organic agriculture, both believed in the existence of these spirits and claimed to communicate with them.
It's hard to dismiss the experiences of people like that.
It certainly adds another layer of complexity to the whole thing. But while we're trying to figure out if we're creating reality or contacting something else, there's this whole other process happening.
What do you mean?
Wilson called it the invisible donkey. It's this unconscious part of ourselves that's constantly shaping our perceptions of reality.
So, like, we're being manipulated by our own minds.
In a way, yes. It's like there's this self-programmer running in the background, influencing our thoughts, beliefs, and experiences.
That's kind of creepy.
It can be. But Wilson believed that becoming aware of this invisible donkey is essential for breaking free from conditioned consciousness.
So, like, waking up to the fact that we're not always in control of our own minds.
It's like realizing that you've been living in this, like, self-created dream. And once you have that realization, you can start to consciously choose the reality you want to create.
That's a powerful idea. But how do we actually do that? How do we reprogram ourselves?
Well, that's a question that Wilson explored throughout his work, and it's one that we'll continue to delve into as we go deeper into Cosmic Trigger.
This is already getting pretty deep.
Oh, we're just scratching the surface.
I can't wait to see where this goes.
Me neither.
Stay tuned, folks. This is just the beginning of our journey into the mind of Robert Anton Wilson.
Things are about to get really weird.
I'm all for it.
Me too.
Okay, so last time, we were talking about some pretty out there stuff.
Alien contact, secret societies, reality tunnels.
Yeah, like where does science end and speculation begin?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. And Wilson didn't shy away from those big questions.
Oh, absolutely not. He embraced the unknown, but he always tried to maintain a critical perspective.
He didn't want to just believe anything blindly. He wanted evidence. But he was also willing to consider ideas that, most people would just dismiss as crazy.
Like, what if we're not alone in the universe?
All right.
What if there are other intelligences out there that we haven't even encountered yet?
And how would we even know if we did encounter them? Would we recognize them?
These are the kinds of questions that Wilson was wrestling with.
And remember, this was back in the 60s and 70s when the space race was in full swing.
Right. Humanity was pushing the boundaries of what was possible, venturing further out into the cosmos than ever before.
And it was a time of incredible social and cultural upheaval, too.
The Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, the psychedelic revolution, it was a time of radical change and questioning everything.
And Wilson was right there in the thick of it, soaking it all in.
And one of the things that really fascinated him was the experiences of astronauts.
Astronaut.
Yeah, specifically the ones who reported having like profound spiritual or mystical experiences while in space.
Oh, you mean the overview effect?
Exactly. That sense of awe and interconnectedness that astronauts often describe when they see Earth from orbit.
It's like you see the whole planet hanging there in the void,
Mm-hmm.
and it just changes your perspective on everything.
Right. It makes you realize how interconnected we all are, how fragile our planet is, how insignificant our little human dramas seem in the grand scheme of things.
And Wilson was fascinated by how this experience was, like, altering the consciousness of these astronauts.
He even connected with Ed Mitchell, one of the astronauts who walked on the moon during the Apollo 14 mission.
Ed Mitchell, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard about him. He became really interested in ESP and psychic phenomena after his spaceflight.
He had this incredibly powerful experience while in space, and it totally changed his life.
What kind of experience?
Well, he described it as this overwhelming sense of connection to everything in the universe. Like he was plugged into some kind of cosmic consciousness.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
And after he returned to Earth, he dedicated the rest of his life to exploring consciousness and these like paranormal phenomena that traditional science often dismisses.
It's amazing how one experience can be so transformative.
Right. And Timothy Leary, who we talked about in the last episode, he believed that Mitchell's experience was just the beginning.
Like the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Leary predicted that space travel would lead to these massive shifts in human consciousness.
As we encounter new realities and, like, push beyond our earthly limitations.
Yeah. He saw space exploration as this catalyst for human evolution.
That's kind of a trippy thought.
It is. And it connects to another movement that was starting to gain traction around this time, the immortalist movement.
The immortalist movement. What's that?
These were people who were dedicated to like extending lifespan and ultimately achieving immortality.
Immortality. Like
Yeah.
living forever.
You got it. Now, it might sound like science fiction,
It does.
but there were some serious scientists and thinkers involved in this movement.
So they were actually trying to figure out how to make people live forever.
They were exploring a whole range of possibilities.
Like what?
Well, there was cryonics.
Cryonics.
Yeah, that's where you freeze a person's body or brain after they die.
Like in the hopes that they can be revived in the future when technology is more advanced.
Exactly. And they were also researching ways to slow down or even reverse the aging process.
So, like, finding the fountain of youth?
Basically.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about the implications of actually overcoming death.
It is. Would we even want to live forever? What would it mean for society, for our relationships, for our sense of purpose?
These are questions that humanity has been wrestling with for centuries.
And for Wilson, this whole idea of immortality became very personal when his daughter Luna was tragically murdered.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
It was a devastating loss for him, and it forced him to confront the question of life and death in the most profound way.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for him.
And in the face of this immense grief, he made the decision to have Luna's brain cryogenically preserved.
That must have been an incredibly difficult decision.
It was, but he held on to the hope that maybe someday in the future she could be brought back to life.
It's a heartbreaking story, but it also speaks to Wilson's willingness to embrace radical possibilities, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy.
He was always open to exploring the unknown, even when it was painful.
And this ties into his fascination with another figure who pushed the boundaries of what was possible, Nikola Tesla,
Ah, Tesla, the ultimate mad scientist.
the man who claimed to receive visions and to have, like, heightened senses.
He was a true genius, made incredible breakthroughs in electricity and magnetism.
But he was also deeply interested in the mysteries of the universe.
Oh, yeah. He believed that the universe operated according to a law of octaves, a concept that resonated with Wilson's own explorations of hidden patterns and interconnectedness.
So are we saying that Tesla was not only a brilliant scientist, but also a mystic?
It's hard to categorize someone like Tesla. He was a unique individual who defied easy labels.
But his experiences, like those of so many other visionaries throughout history, suggest that the human mind is capable of accessing knowledge and influencing reality in ways that we're only beginning to understand.
And it makes you wonder what other potentials are lurking within us, just waiting to be unlocked.
It's a pretty exciting thought, but also a little bit scary.
It is, because it means that we're not just passive observers in this reality. We're active participants. We have the power to shape our own experiences and maybe even influence the world around us.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. And it brings us to one of the most mind-bending concepts we've encountered so far, the holographic universe.
Oh yeah, the holographic universe. That one's a doozy.
It suggests that reality as we perceive it is actually a projection of a deeper, more interconnected level of existence.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does it actually mean to say that the universe is a hologram?
Imagine a regular hologram, like the kind you might see on a credit card. It appears three-dimensional, but it's actually encoded on a two-dimensional surface.
Right, so it's like a trick of the light.
Exactly. And some physicists believe that our three-dimensional reality might be a similar kind of projection.
So, like, our universe is just a hologram projected from some higher dimensional reality.
That's the basic idea.
Whoa!
I know, right? It's mind-blowing. And what's even weirder is that in a hologram, every part contains information about the whole.
So, like, if you cut a hologram in half, you still have the whole image, just smaller.
Right. So in a holographic universe, every single point in space-time would theoretically contain information about the entire universe.
Okay, my brain is officially melting.
I feel you. It's a lot to process.
But how does this holographic universe idea connect back to what we've been talking about with Wilson?
Well, it provides a framework for understanding some of the seemingly paranormal phenomena that he was so fascinated by.
Like synchronicities and telepathy.
Exactly. And maybe even the possibility of contact with other intelligences.
So instead of dismissing these experiences as hallucinations or delusions, we could see them as glimpses into this deeper, more interconnected level of reality.
Right. It opens up a whole new way of thinking about consciousness and our place in the cosmos. It suggests that we're not just these isolated individuals.
But rather, we're all interconnected nodes in this vast web of existence.
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's definitely a mind-expanding concept.
And that's what Wilson was all about. Expanding our minds and challenging us to see the world in new ways.
We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, from space travel and immortality to holographic universes and the power of the mind.
And there's still more to come.
Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll continue exploring the implications of Wilson's ideas and what they might mean for the future of humanity. All right, so we're back. Still trying to wrap our heads around Robert Anton Wilson and his exploration of consciousness.
Yeah, he really takes us down some fascinating paths.
And I think what's so cool about him is that he's not afraid to, like, consider perspectives that most people wouldn't even touch.
Like some really far out stuff.
Yeah. For example, he suggests that maybe, just maybe, some of the most influential figures in history, like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad,
Oh, wow, okay.
they might have had experiences that, looking back, we could interpret as extraterrestrial contact.
Like alien encounters.
Or communication with some kind of higher intelligence.
I see where you're going with this.
Right. And he pointed out that their accounts, even though they're often framed in, like, religious language,
Yeah.
they actually share some common themes,
What kind of themes?
like encountering something that's beyond ordinary human perception.
So instead of seeing these figures as like purely religious figures,
Maybe they were tapping into something real, something that we're only beginning to understand now.
that's a pretty radical idea.
It is, but it makes you think, right? Like, what if our interpretations of reality are way more limited than we realize?
Limited by our culture, by our belief systems.
Yeah.
It's like we're all wearing these blinders.
And Wilson would call those blinders our reality tunnels.
Wait, and sometimes those tunnels can get so narrow
So rigid.
that we can't even see what's right in front of us.
Okay, so how do we, like, break free from these tunnels? How do we widen our perspective?
Well, Wilson believed that psychedelics could play a role in that.
Psychedelics, okay.
Yeah.
But, like, used responsibly, right?
Of course, yeah, with intention. He didn't advocate for reckless drug use.
No. He saw psychedelics as a
tool for expanding consciousness.
for, like, shattering those limiting beliefs that we hold on to.
And for accessing different modes of perception, like shaking things up a bit.
Yeah, like shaking up those ingrained patterns of thinking,
Right, because sometimes we get so stuck in our routines
stuck in our heads.
that we forget that there are other ways of seeing the world.
And he also talked about the importance of self-programming.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
This idea that we're not just passive recipients of reality, that we actually have a choice.
We can choose the beliefs and thoughts that shape our experience.
So we're not just victims of circumstance.
No, we have agency. We have power.
Like, we're all walking around with these supercomputers in our heads.
And we're just using them to browse social media.
Right. We're capable of so much more.
Wilson believed that we have the potential to create our own reality.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? How do we reprogram ourselves?
It starts with awareness, becoming aware of those limiting beliefs that are holding us back.
And then what?
And then choosing to replace those beliefs with something more empowering, more expansive.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's not always easy, but it's possible.
So if we can, like, reprogram our own minds,
Yeah.
what does that mean for humanity as a whole?
Wilson believed that we have the potential to, like, collectively evolve
Evolve into what?
to become more intelligent, more compassionate, more cosmically aware.
It's a beautiful vision,
Yeah,
but how do we get there? It seems like we're so divided, so caught up in our own little dramas.
I hear you. But Wilson believed that science and technology could play a role in this evolution.
Science and technology.
Yeah, especially space exploration and life extension research.
So, like, as we venture further out into the cosmos and push the boundaries of what it means to be human,
We'll inevitably encounter new challenges and perspectives that will force us to grow and evolve.
it's like we're constantly being pushed to expand our understanding of ourselves and the universe.
And Wilson saw that as a good thing, a necessary thing.
Right, because it forces us to confront our limitations
To break free from those old, outdated ways of thinking.
and to create something new.
Exactly. Something more beautiful, more expansive, more in alignment with our true potential.
Okay, I'm with you, but I still have to ask, like, what does all this mean for me? What can I actually do with this information?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is simple. Question everything.
Everything.
Don't take anything for granted. Don't blindly accept what you're told,
Even from us.
especially from us. Do your own research, explore different perspectives, and most importantly, be open to the possibility that you might be wrong.
That's a tough one.
It is, but it's also incredibly liberating.
Because it frees us from the tyranny of dogma.
Exactly. And it opens us up to a whole universe of possibilities.
So, to wrap things up, I guess the big takeaway from Robert Anton Wilson is that reality is not fixed, it's fluid.
it's something that we're constantly creating and recreating with our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions.
And that we have the power to choose the reality we want to experience.
So choose wisely.
Well said. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Robert Anton Wilson. It's been a wild ride.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Me neither. And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop expanding your reality tunnels.